20 years ago, I started a global business from humble beginnings, from a spare bedroom at home in South Auckland, New Zealand. Now this business is an 8-figure business and we have well over 80 people working for us. So in this video, I want to share with you the 20 lessons over 20 years that I wish I knew when I was starting out in business. So number one, thinking big is the same amount of energy as thinking small. When I first started, I was inspired by going to university and one of my lecturers saying, here's the problem with New Zealand business owners. We think too small. We think about the boat, the batch, the BMW, but that's our limit in terms of our thinking. And then he said this, imagine growing a brand from New Zealand and growing global, because the world is a big place. What I've come to realize is that thinking big is the same amount of energy as thinking small. It's just a choice at the end of the day. Now, if I hadn't thought bigger than growing out of Auckland or bigger than growing out of New Zealand, I wouldn't be in 8 countries today. Conversely, some of my competitors that started way before me 20 years ago were perhaps thinking too small. See, they're no longer in business because when the pandemic came, they weren't thinking outside their realm of comfort. They were used to classroom-based learning, and so obviously they couldn't teach through COVID. They went out of business, where we were thinking globally, so we had to innovate along the way. We had to think about bringing the world closer to us, and we did that through innovation. We did that through video conferencing, and we were well ahead of the curve. So we had started doing this 5 years before the pandemic. So when COVID hit, it normalized how we were training, how we were coaching, how we're using blended learning to help companies scale. So anyway, thinking big is the same amount of energy as thinking small. At the end of the day, it's your choice. Do you want to think big or do you want to think small? So if you want to make your present right now brighter, make your future bigger. So here's a secret that could be preventing you being the number one in the world at what you do. How do I know? A year into the business, I was at a sales conference in the US, and it was the last day of the conference. I happened to have dinner with an elderly gentleman who was wise beyond his years. Now, we got into a deep conversation and he started to really take an interest in me. He said to me, well, son, what is it that you do? And so I explained what I did. And, without going into detail, the next question was, who's the best in the world at what you do? Now, I'm sitting there thinking, and this is way beyond the days of social media. There was no Facebook. There was no Instagram. There was no YouTube back there. This is 20 years ago. And all I could think about was these old-time sales trainers, the Tom Hopkins, the Brian Tracy's, the Zig Ziglars of the world. And I certainly didn't compare myself to them because I didn't see myself as a sales trainer. I was more of a dude who specialized in sales to help transform sales for companies. So, and as I sat there, I was reflecting on who is the best. And then he asked me this question, why couldn't it be you? And as he said that, my mindset was running wild. I was thinking, it can't be me. I'm just a guy from South Auckland, New Zealand. Like, I was an electrician for 10 years and then I got into sales. It can't be me. There'd be better people, like way better people in the world that do what I do. So I didn't verbalize this, but it was certainly going through my head. And then he said to me this, the only thing that's stopping you being number one in the world is in between your ears. And it was like, wow, that really resonated with me. And he said this, somebody has to be the number one in the world. Why can't it be you? Whew, this is pretty powerful. So for me, I was thinking at the time, it was certainly in my face and it was compelling, but it resonated with me deeply because I kept thinking about this whole notion of there is someone that's got to be the number one in the world. Why can't it be me? So at the end of the day, it's a choice. It's a mindset. Being the number one in the world, what it takes is defining what you want to be the best in the world at. So if you can niche down in your area of expertise and you can carve out a category that no one else is playing in, you could be the best in the world at what you do. But The number one secret is mindset. It's a choice on whether you want to be the number one in the world or not. There are two stereotypes in business, and I've seen in a lot of entrepreneurs that look more like foxes. So what is a characteristic of the fox, might you ask? Well, they're nimble, they're agile, they stalk their prey, they're opportunistic. So that's a good strategy for some entrepreneurs, and it'll get them some success, right? But sometimes it's more by fluke than it is by design. Jim Collins, in his book Good to Great, identified that the great companies were more like hedgehogs. How so, you might be thinking? Well, good question. So a hedgehog strategy. What does a hedgehog do when it's been attacked? It curls up into a little ball with all its spikes, so no predator will want to attack it. It's a very, very simple strategy. You just need to curl into a ball. Now, Jim Collins suggests that every great company has a hedgehog strategy. And there are three questions he poses when he studied all of these great companies in business. And the first question we need to answer is, what are you passionate about? The second question is, what can you be the best in the world at? And the third question is, what is your economic engine? So those are the three strategic questions that'll enable you as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, to make the right decisions without confusion, right? Without distraction in your business. Because if you're like me, I like the bright, shiny things, and I get distracted when I see opportunity. I'm probably more of a fox. But because we have a very defined hedgehog strategy, I always come back to, and my leaders in my business always remind me of the hedgehog strategy. Keep it simple, stupid. Like all of these opportunities that present themselves to us, we've got to decide whether it fits the hedgehog, because the art of strategy is saying no more times than you say yes. Because the problem with small and medium-sized businesses is this: there's always more opportunities than there are time and resources. So we've got to really define what we are, what we stand for, what we're passionate about, what we can be the best in the world at, and what really drives our economic engine. For SalesStar, those three questions were, what are we passionate about? And for us, that was an easy one. It was growing people to grow sales for companies. Number two, what can we be the best in the world at? It was empowering our coaches to give transformational sales results for our clients. That's what we want to be the best in the world at. And what drives our economic engine is recurring revenue, and it's profit per coach. Anyway, so that is our simple hedgehog strategy. Define your hedgehog strategy, define those three questions for you, and hopefully that gets rid of all of the confusion, gets rid of all the complexity in chasing multiple opportunities in your business, and it'll help you stay focused and scale much faster. Lesson number 4. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. That was a phrase coined by Peter Drucker. And for years, I didn't know if I really bought into that, and I didn't really know what I meant until more recently. Now, I've built a business based on culture. Now, it was more probably at the time by accident than default. You see, like many people, I've worked in big organizations that had no culture, that had no core values, and that just treated you like another number in the business. Now, part of me wanting to be an entrepreneur and starting my own business is I didn't like to be held ransom or stuck in a culture that stunk. I didn't want to be another cog in the corporate wheel. So starting my own business gave me a blank piece of paper to know what it is I wanted to grow in terms of culture, because I knew what I didn't want. So our culture really is derived by our core purpose, our vision, our want to make a difference, but we have very, very strong core values that we hire by and we fire by. And we have a remarkable culture because everyone remarks about it. Now, I didn't know how much of a competitive advantage our culture was until we started growing the US market. right? So we'd been there for a couple of years. We developed some very, very, very good people that were sales star champions through and through. They were A players. They really fit the culture. And they believed that Sales Star's competitive advantage wasn't necessarily the IP. It wasn't what we did. It was about the people. It was about the people, the people, the people. So with that enthusiasm, every time we had someone in the mix that we're either hiring as a salesperson or a franchisee in US, they would come into our culture and they would be enamored by the culture because they'd come out of corporate where they felt like it's just another cog in the wheel. The companies didn't stand for anything. The culture was dead and they could feel it. And it was very transformational coming into our culture going, wow, look at all these amazing people. Look at this company that's built on purpose. It's purpose-driven, values-led culture. They remarked on it so much. It was like day and night. And they couldn't really believe what they had found. They were attracted by it. They were enamored by it. So it helped us recruit and it's helped us retain some very, very talented people in the business. Now, culture eats strategy for breakfast. I can actually say that our culture is a strategy. It's a competitive advantage. And I didn't realize until recently how much of a competitive advantage it can be. Create a compelling culture, a culture where people want to work for you, and you will find it easy to attract and retain top talent in your business. If you want more sales in your business, hire better salespeople. Easier said than done, right? Hiring salespeople can be difficult. It is a science. And here's the thing that I've learned over 20 years, is that salespeople do their best sales at the blinking interview. And so for the untrained eye, we tend to fall for their BS because we don't know any better. We don't know how to apply science to hiring top talent. So I'm going to give you a few lessons to help you make informed recruitment decisions so you don't have the high cost of making bad hiring decisions. So number one, when you're hiring salespeople, you've got to be very, very clear on what role that salesperson does and how it fits with your overarching strategy. Now, on a high level, do you want that salesperson to be inside sales on the phone, making appointments? Do you want them to be an account manager? Do you want them to be a farmer who farms and aggressively grows accounts? So there's some differences there. Account manager is more like your relationship person. A farmer is more strategic. A hunter is someone that can actually hunt and bring in work. They generally do the whole sales cycle. So you've got to really define what type of person you're looking for first and foremost. Second to that, you've got to be able to attract and start to select the right types of people that will be a good fit. We've got a recruitment process. It's a 9-step process on how to develop high-performing salespeople. We'll put a link into that after this video. I'm going to keep this short and I'm going to keep this concise. We need to put salespeople through their paces. Now, any A player will understand their numbers. So when I'm hiring salespeople, I always ask them, what's been the most successful sales role you've been in? So what was the business doing when you started? And what was it doing when you finish? Like, what was the growth in that time? How did you do it? What were your numbers? Now, any A player will know their numbers. So that's a telltale sign, right? If they don't know their numbers, if they're not sure, you probably could take that as BS. So another thing I like to use is a tool called Talk. It's threat of reference check. So I always ask them, so if you were the top performer and we rung your previous boss, what would they say about your sales capability? What would they say about your results? What would they say about you being a team player? So what would they say about you in general? Now, this generally comes with them wanting to be honest with you because you're reference checking, right? Threat of reference check. So that's one thing. The last couple of things I want to leave you with is run them through their paces. You need to simulate your sales environment and you need to get them to role practice. yes, you can set them up for success, give them a scenario, but run them through their paces, because you want to be able to see how they can react in a high pressure situation. Now, interviewing for a job is high pressure, and we want to be able to see if they can actually hold their own, if they're calm, if they're really good at asking questions, if they're able to take the normal pushback you get, and just how confident they are in general. So put them through their paces. And the last couple of things is reference checks. You should get reference checks. And the very last thing is what happens in the first 90 days of them starting. Because most people, right, they make a hiring decisions, they throw the salesperson the keys and say, get out there and sell. That is the wrong thing to do. We need to set salespeople up for success, not failure. So you should have a 90-day plan, and in that 90-day plan should outline what success looks like, what your sales process looks like, what's your ideal client look like, what's your value proposition, who's your competition, how you're different than the competition, what are their expected KPIs and milestones in the business, who do they go for help. You've got to outline all of these things in the first 90 days so they know that in their first week of starting. Don't wait 90 days for them to fail and then realize you didn't have, or they didn't have, all the pieces of the puzzle there that they should have had on day one. So there you go. It's a bit of a science for hiring salespeople, but if you get it right, it's going to help you scale your business. If you get it wrong, it's going to lead to frustration, it's going to lead to a cash burn, and it's going to lead to pulling your hair out thinking, when you get it wrong, it's going to lead to disappointment, frustration, and leave you with a high cost with nothing to show. So make sure you hire the right salespeople for your business to help you scale. Lesson 6 on mindset. Is your mindset going to make you millions or cost you millions? 80% of success is what lies between your ears. It's your mindset. In business and in sales, you tend to have this little voice inside your head that can either support you and tell you that you can do things, that gives you the energy and the confidence to be greater than what you currently are, or you can have that negative voice, that automatic negative voice is 70% of our dialogue. You can buy into that, and that little man there can sabotage your success and cost you a lot of money. So here's a little story for you. Many years ago, before I even started SalesStar, it was kind of my first forum into being a business consultant. I was waiting outside a prospect's house, and it was supposed to be their business, but I could see it was more like a hobby business. They had been running their business inside their home. So with me on that call, and accompanying me, was a business development manager. His name was Matthew Rourke, one of the best sales guys I'd ever met. Now, Matt came out of his car, joined me in my car, and I said to Matt, I kind of verbalized what was going on in my head. I said, Matt, I think this is going to be a waste of time. Look, they're not even a real business. Seems to be some sort of hobby business. Now, I don't know about you, Matt, but I don't think they're going to have the money, and I don't think it's going to be the right thing for them. So I think we're wasting our time. Now, what Matt did is he showed me the hand. He went, I don't know what we're going to do. Now he stepped out of the car at the stage and proceeded to walk to the house. And before he knocked on the door, he turned around, did this funky chicken thing, straightened himself out, had a pen in his pocket, rubbed his pen. He says, I don't know what's going to happen, but you know what? This is going to be the best sale we've ever made. And so he walked into the door, and there we were. In part of that sales process, I was enamored by him because he had complete control of the sale. Now, as these objections started to come up, he handled them one by one. And then at the end of it, he made a sale, to my astonishment. Now, we had a debrief afterwards. Now, Matt said to me this. He said, Paul, you're really good at building rapport. You're really good at prep and strategizing. But there's one thing that's holding you back from being successful. And that is your mindset. You have self-limiting belief, and they're gonna limit your success in sales, and they're gonna limit your success in business. I said, how so? And he said to me, if I wasn't at that call, would you have made a sale? And I went, no. And so, exactly. He said, why not? And I went, I'm not sure. He said, well, because you'd already talked yourself out of a sale before you even started. He said, so what would happen when you got your first objection? He said, here's what would happen. You would look at that objection like, we don't have the money, or this is expensive, and you'd be gathering that to fill your story of this isn't the right opportunity. This will be a waste of time. They won't have the money. They'll think it's too expensive. So you're going to support your story. He says, what do? I always anchor myself into my favorite pen I like signing contracts with. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I do know it's going to be the best sale I've ever made. And so what happens? When I get an objection, guess what I do? And I went, I don't know. What do you do, Matt? He says, I lean forward because I'm really excited because I know if I can answer that objection, I'm another step closer to making the sale, and it's going to be the best sale I've ever made. So that is the difference, ladies and gentlemen, about how your mindset can either support you in business or can sabotage your business. So we've got to often have a check up from the neck up and make sure that our mindset is supportive of your success. And some of the techniques that you can use to actually have a supportive mindset, because sometimes those negative beliefs come from our history. I can't cold call. It might have been a cold call you did years ago as a salesperson. We've got to be able to eradicate that thinking. And you can do that through visualization, manifesting your future through hypnosis. So there's plenty of YouTube videos on hypnotherapy that can help, but fundamentally positive affirmations. So you've got to go from I can't cold call to I'm a really good cold caller. Like every time I speak to someone, they listen. Every time I speak to a stranger, I add value. Every time I speak to a stranger and add value, I make sales. So we've got to lock in to tuning up our mindset to make sure it's supporting us, not sabotaging us. If you want to win, stick to one horse. Here's the challenge with most business owners is we are distracted, right, on all of these opportunities. The fussier we get, the faster we're going to grow. So we need to focus. We need laser beams coming out of our eyeballs. So focus is an acronym and it stands for follow one course until successful. So what does that mean? Well, when you're starting out in business especially, we should be thinking about who it is we serve. So your ideal future client or your ICP, your ideal client profile, we should be thinking about who is that ideal target person. So one ideal target, not 4, not 5, because then you dilute your value proposition, you dilute your energy, and you'll never be successful. So just choose the one. Choose one product or service offer. Like, what is the service offer that you can provide them that gets the biggest results, that gets the biggest profits for your business? So focus on one product, one service, one process, one value proposition. Like just focus until you master and expand on that target market. Choose an ideal market that has a big enough addressable market for you and your business to be successful. Number 8, it won't grow if you don't measure it. We need to understand the numbers. Whether you're a business owner, whether you're in marketing, whether you're in sales, there's a set of numbers that we must understand that drives the unit economics of any business. Now, I want to talk to you about what I love about business, what I love about sales, is that you can backwards engineer success, right? Thinking about where you want to grow, how much you want to grow. It's easy to backwards engineer it when you know a few things in the business. You need to know your average sale, right? You need to be able to divide that by your conversion ratios to work out what the KPIs should be in your business. In other words, like if you've got a 50% conversion ratio every time you present a solution and you need 10 units sold, it means you have to have 20 proposals out there. You get the message? Now you can backwards engineer how many discoveries you need. And those discoveries, how many phone conversations you need to make a discovery, and so on and so forth. But those are the leading indicators, and arguably the most important indicators in the business, because it's the leading indicators that you can control and that you can really focus on to drive business results. A lot of business owners make this mistake. They're too focused on the lagging indicators, which are those financial indicators. How many sales? How many units? So these are things that happen after the fact and you can't be proactive in. The other set of numbers that is worthy of looking at is sales effectiveness numbers. When I look at sales effectiveness numbers, I'm looking at average sale. Is that average sale going up? I'm also looking at conversion ratios, because you'll get different people with different skill sets and you'll have different conversion ratios. But if we can raise the conversion ratios up of our salespeople, you'll have greater success. And the last one I want to leave you with is length of sales cycle. And most people don't measure this. So I often hear business owners say, we've got a long sales cycle. And I go, well, how do you measure it? Well, it's just a guesstimate. But guess what? You become what you measure. If you start measuring your sales cycles, then you can put some intervention around making that shorter. We've worked with companies where we've halved their sales cycles just because we're measuring it. You become what you measure. So make sure you understand the numbers. Make sure you understand what drives your business success. Know your numbers, know your business. Get clear on those leading indicators and those sales effectiveness KPIs. Sales is a formula, not a fluke. You can't have predictable sales without a process. You can't blame your people's performance if you don't have a common gold standard process. Here's the challenge with most entrepreneurs, with most business owners. They are the best salesperson. Generally it's their baby. They're passionate about it. They know the business inside out. They can do deals. They're confident. They've got the swagger. But here's the problem. They're also the biggest bottleneck most of the time because they can't scale themselves. They don't have a process. They don't have a framework in which they can impart that to future salespeople and a sales manager to manage to scale their business. Process will add tremendous amount of enterprise value to any business, because with a process, you can train people, you can coach people, you can actually have something that's repeatable, predictable, and profitable. So how can you go about that, you might ask? Well, there's 3 core things you need to consider in a process. You need to be thinking about the key milestones in your business. What are the key milestones that lead to a sale? So these are the things that become measurable. Then you need to have very good methodology in your business. So, you want your salespeople selling the same way. So it's easier to coach them, easier to train them, easier to hold them accountable on the sales process and do deal-specific coaching. With the right methodology, you'll be able to sell on value, not price. So that gives you your profitability. But then you need a system to manage. When you've got the milestones, when you've got the methodology, it becomes predictable if you start to manage the sales process. So if you want measurable, predictable, and profitable results, develop a gold standard sales process. Develop your salespeople based on your process. Coach them on your sales process. Hire them on your sales process, and make sure you're managing your process so you can't blame your people, but you can lift them to a gold standard. Sales fixes everything, and it can be so frustrating when sales are coming in lumps. You've got a bloated pipeline and they're not converting. Here's a few levers that you can actually pull. First and foremost, the reason why sales typically don't convert is not enough client motivation. And what that typically means is our salespeople aren't doing a good enough job at identifying the true needs of a client. And it's generally around their pain and about the size of the challenge and how it's impacting on their business. Because when prospects understand the size of the problem and how it's impacting them, it generally increases buying motivation by 400%. So make sure your salespeople have a consultative sales strategy, because the true definition of consultative selling is enhancement of client profits. So it's a customer-centric way of selling to help improve the profitability of their clients. Now, even in a tight economy, CEOs will still spend if it makes them money, but CFOs will stop spending if it's costing them money. So ensure you've got a really good strategy. Focus on the numbers, right? You've got to do the activity. It's time and game. And the best way to grow your business is with existing customer base, because it's 5 times more cost effective selling to your existing clients than winning new business. Did you know in 2025, it takes 20 to 23 touch points to win new business? Now that's an extremely high cost. You've got marketing, lead generation, you've got all of those touch points along the way. And you know that most salespeople give up over, within the first 2 or 3 contacts. You've got to be able to bridge the gap. You've got to spend more time with prospects that are qualified to buy from you, that are more likely to buy from you. And you've got to be relentless at disqualifying opportunities that are tire kickers that will never buy. So there's a few levers to start selling yourself out of a rut. And the other thing is you've got to be able to develop and train your people. Because if you don't train your people, you can't blame your people. Selling and sales is the front end, the sharp end of your business, right? And our people matter. How we sell matters. So if you want to sell yourself out of a rut, those are the things and those are the levers that I would be pulling to unfunk your sales and to be more successful. Stop practicing on your prospects. This is the most expensive you can do as a sales-led organization. Letting your salespeople loose on prospects. Especially if you haven't trained them, you certainly can't blame them. We've got to develop a coaching culture of excellence where we're developing, training, and coaching your salespeople on a weekly, if not daily basis. Now, you should be looking to foster a culture of role practice, because it's better to practice internally and get this right than it is on your prospects. Now, how many times do I hear business owners say this? Our salespeople are telling us that the marketing leads are crap. So sales are blaming marketing, and marketing is saying, hey, we've got good leads for salespeople. But here's the question. Is it the marketing leads, or is it that your salespeople weren't good enough? Are they practicing on your prospects? And if they are, what do you think that's costing you? Because just to generate a lead costs hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And to convert a lead into the sale, you want to make sure that your salespeople are highly effective. They're prepared. They know exactly what questions they ask, they're going to ask. They know exactly what pushback they might get. They know the value proposition, and they know the way forward to maximize that lead to convert a sale. So stop practicing on your prospects, start practicing internally, get that right, and start scaling your business in the most efficient way you can. If you want your business to grow, you have to outgrow it. So here's the thing. When the leader doesn't rise, the business dies. Now, I can give you so many examples in my business over the last 20 years where the biggest problems have to be solved by me, right? That's our job as a leader. That's why they pay us the big bucks. Now, I can remember one incident way back when we started doing digital marketing. We started to recycle a lot of marketing agents because they were all smoke and mirrors. None of them actually delivered on what we wanted. And I was left feeling damn frustrated. And so I wanted to unpack what it is we could do in the digital marketing space to start scaling our business in a consistent way. So I literally locked myself in a room for 2 months, studying all of the marketing gurus out there. And so self-taught, what I was able to do was come up with a strategy. I came up with a simple 1-page strategic sales plan, which we still use today. But that created so many leads, we had to turn the marketing off. And it's just one example of me rising to the occasion. So as leaders, we need to keep growing. We need to have a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. So we have to rise. Otherwise, the business, well, it dies. So what do you need to do to rise above, to keep developing yourself in order to scale your business. Do you have a business that works for you, or do you work for it? There's 3 components to any business. You have to generate a lead, you have to convert a lead into a sale, then you have to deliver an exceptional product or service. So knowing that there's only 3 aspects to any business, especially if you're starting out in business, you're probably doing all of it like I was 20 years ago. But you need to be thinking about hiring the right people to be able to take one aspect of that part of the business off you. So in other words, if you make yourself redundant from those positions, now the long-term game, like me, I've made myself redundant successfully with every part of that business. So we have a marketing department that's generating leads. We have many salespeople and a sales leader leading sales. And then we have a very high functioning delivery team delivering exceptional value and creating raving fans. So I am not working in the business, I'm working on the business. So it actually means that you have to hire the right people doing the right things so you can have a business that works for you and you don't work for it. Good companies develop great strategies, but great companies develop great sales systems to execute on the strategy. Now, a lot of companies that we work with struggle to get predictable and repeatable growth because they fail to develop their strategic sales systems. So what is a strategic sales system? What should it consist of? Those are really good questions. So we, over the last 20 years, have developed a 9-step strategic sales system. And I just want to color in, without going into details, some of the things you should be considering. Because what we know doesn't work is when you do training by itself. Training alone doesn't work. Why is that? There's many reasons why. So here's the fundamental things that you want to consider in a strategic sales system. Well, first and foremost, you want to have a clearly defined growth strategy. So the difficulties with most companies is defining that strategy, that plan. We've made it easy. We've developed a 1-page sales plan so all your salespeople can be on the same page. Very clear, very defined, and easy to follow. Second, from your strategy, you need to have a sales process that's aligned to your growth strategy. So once you develop the sales process, and it should be milestone centric, you need to take that process and put it into a system that replicates your sales process, because your salespeople need to see themselves in the process. It's fundamentally why most CRM systems don't work, because salespeople don't see the correlation to what they're taught in terms of a sales process and their methodology to a CRM system, which is putting in numbers that doesn't seem to correlate with your sales process. So make sure that's aligned. Then you need to manage the sales process to get those predictable results. You need to come up with a methodology to improve the profitability in your business. But then there's other things you should consider in a strategic sales system, which is how do you recruit and onboard high-performing salespeople? And then how do you take the current sales team and develop their skills and develop their ability to sell? So you need to be thinking about how you train them and how you coach them up for success. So those are all of the key components in a strategic sales system. So your strategy should align with your process, that should align with your pipeline sales systems, which should be aligned with your management, and should be aligned with how your people go to market to sell, because how you sell matters. So develop your strategic sales systems. Don't leave things by chance. So sales is a formula. It's not a fluke. You can't sell a secret. Shh. Hey, bring it in. Do you want to know a secret? Here it is. Here's a secret that prevents most companies scaling successfully. And that is, you can't sell a secret, right? You might have the best product, you might have the best service in the world, but if nobody knows you exist, you're dead in the water. So you've got to be thinking about ways you can promote your business, right? You've got to always be marketing your business to the right audience. When I started out in business, I didn't have a big marketing budget at all. In fact, I had $0 to spend, so I had to get very creative on how I could promote my business. Almost 20 years ago when I started the business, I heard this saying, he who owns the front end of the market owns the market. Now, I literally had no money to spend on marketing, so I had to get really creative in what I did. So I actually put myself out there, out of my comfort zones, to do complimentary speaking gigs. It was like how to develop high-performing sales teams. I did have a database at that time, and I sent it was a small database. I sent an email out to a database to invite them into a seminar. Now, I had seats for 30 people. About 80 people turned up. It was standing room only. It was probably one of the first times I ever spoke publicly, which was absolutely petrifying. Really brought me out of my comfort zone. And that's an interesting aspect too to think about. The comfort zone's a comfortable place, but nothing ever grows in there. We have to be comfortable at getting uncomfortable in order to grow. So that was one of those moments where I had to get uncomfortable, and I had to be comfortable getting uncomfortable in order to grow my business. But what happened was I had a very successful seminar which generated leads, but most of all, it gave me the confidence to rinse and repeat. Now, during the global financial crisis in 2008, I made it one of those strategic decisions to speak on a regular basis. So monthly, I would be running seminars, inviting CEOs primarily and sales leaders to events where we would have 100 people there. Unbeknownst to my competitors, it was free. Why was it free? Because I knew the cost of acquisition. I knew that if 100 people would come, I'd win 5 clients. But the other thing that I knew is he who owns the front end of the market owns the market. Now, sitting in the audience on one of these seminars was a gentleman called Alex Chan. Now, Alex was a phenomenal sales trainer, a real industry leader. He'd been doing it for 20 years. Now, through the GFC, Alex's business had taken a bit of a turn for the worse, but he was sitting in the audience. He approached me afterwards. He said, wow, that was just amazing. You guys look like you're busy. Maybe we should chat and you could potentially hire me to do your delivery. So to take a long story short, we developed a relationship where he actually became my delivery person. So that enabled me to get out of delivery, because at that time I was doing everything, generating a lead, selling a product called Me, and trying to deliver me. So you end up in this vicious cycle like a bit of a hamster on the wheel. But now I had a key person in the business to take on delivery, which meant I could do more the front end of the business. That strategy was so successful that for years later, we used to have this 20-mile march where we had monthly CEOs luncheons, breakfasts, where we'd invite CEOs into the room and we'd do 2 hours on the CEO's secrets to scaling their business. We always got business from those events. They were super successful. However, back in 2015, 2016, when we wanted to start scaling outside of New Zealand, we had to think creative. And that's where we started to lean into digital marketing to rinse and repeat how we could take a 2-hour seminar and we could turn it into a digital asset to every single corner in the world. Now, if we hadn't done that, we wouldn't have grown from New Zealand to the global enterprise we are today. So have a think about it. You can't sell a secret. So what are you doing to promote your business? What are you doing to own the market? What are you doing to grow your business? You're not going to be able to scale your business if you're a secret and nobody knows about you. If you really hate it, delegate it. So as a business owner, in my experience, life's too short to be working on the things that you hate. I know from experience when I've worked on stuff that aren't in my zone of genius, it sucks me full of energy. There's things that I can do, like spreadsheets, some sort of like accounts, the operation stuff, managing people. Look, I'm not that good at it. It does drain my energy. It's not good for my adult ADHD. and it doesn't bring out the best version of me. So what I've learned to do in business, and a lot of people will say, be more productive, have a to-do list. Well, I say, have a stop doing list. That's how I became more productive in my business. I literally had a page with stop doing. So every time I found myself caught into a trap of something that I hate, I would say, how do I delegate this task? Who should I delegate it to? So that was a way of me really identifying the things that I should stop doing, especially if they're low paid jobs. Like my rule of thumb is, to my leaders in the business, they're worth at least $500 an hour. So I always say, if you find yourself doing a $50 an hour job, you should delegate it. So that was my rule of thumb, is if I was focusing on low paid activity, and especially if I hated it, I had to delegate it. So stop doing. So here's the thing you want to do as a leader. Your job is to focus on high payoff activities. Work in your zone of genius, whether that's creating a lead, helping convert a sale, or delivering a fantastic product or a service. Or maybe you've elevated yourself into a true leadership role where you're working on the business and not in the business. But you've got to do something that really gives you energy, that not only gives you energy, but helps focus you on the most strategic things you can do in your business that gets the best version out of you. Because when you're doing tasks that you hate, it's going to drain your energy and you're going to turn up with no energy. Our job as a leader is to hold the space for others. We need to be energized in what we do. So you might as well love what you do and choose the tasks that you love. So if you hate it, delegate it. Don't buy a dog and bark for it. See, you as a business owner can't grow your business. Only your people can. So if it's all about you, you'll never be able to scale. And trust me, I've been in business for 20 years. I've associated with entrepreneurs in all shapes and forms. I was a member of EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, for about 15 years. And here's what I realized. Some entrepreneurs are holding themselves back from scaling because they are the bottleneck. They often hire people to scale their business, but there's a lack of trust. There's a lack of empowering their staff to do the job. I was very fortunate early on. A bit of business advice that I got was, you'll never scale your business if it's always going to be about you. Now, if you can be fine with the notion of, even if you hire a really good person to do the job, they're not going to do it as good as you. Kind of that's the mindset you need to have. But they only need to be doing it 10% better than the competition. So that's the mindset I had to be able to scale and to be able to empower people to do what I do and get out of my own way. So part of the keys to me succeeding was making myself redundant from every single position, but also empowering my staff to do a really, really good job. You've also got to create a culture where it's okay to make mistakes, right? So I have a very, very simple rule. I always say to my staff, is it the right thing to do for the customer? Does it fit our core values? And can you stand behind your decisions? Now, if there's a failure, we use that as learning, because in our culture, there's only win and learn, not win and lose. So you got to use those mistakes as a learning experience. I'll give you a really good experience. So Alex Chan, he's my head of learning and development. We had a $1.4 million opportunity to present to a New Zealand corporate that had a global reach. Anyway, this is probably about 12 years ago in the business. And to truth be known, we probably weren't ready to accommodate that company. But we got shortlisted. We came down to the shortlist and they asked us one question and we kind of fumbled our way through it, but we knew enough that we didn't install confidence to the buying committee so they could choose us and they didn't choose the competitors, which was a global company. Anyway, we got the Dear John letter. We weren't successful. Now, Alex came to me and said, he did the honourable thing. He said, Paul, I've failed you. I am so sorry. I didn't prepare enough for that question and I should have known. Now, next time we get an opportunity like that, I am going to back down and let someone else rise to the occasion because clearly I haven't done a good enough job. I turned around to Alex and said, are you kidding? I've just invested $1.4 million in you to learn this mistake so we don't do it again. Anyway, I wasn't upset about it. It was just one of those things where you've got to take those losses and you've got to turn them into learns. Otherwise, you are going to drive yourself mad about the opportunities that you've dropped. Yeah, you've got to be able to grow people and use those mistakes as learning opportunities. Anyway, the relationship with Alex and I have never been better. He's gone on to win multi-million-dollar deals because I trusted him to do the job. We banked the learnings. We didn't cry over the spilt milk. We focused on the opportunities in front of us, and I can tell you what, that investment has paid off more than $1.4 million. So the only way to really scale a business is to hire people to do the role that you used to do, make yourself redundant. Get out of your own way, empower your people. Don't hire a dog and bark for it. In other words, don't hire people in your business and micromanage them and tell them what to do. Give them the training, give them the coaching, give them the outcomes that you're looking for, and let them get on with it. Let them do it. Sure, they're going to make some mistakes, but you're going to have some great learning if you've got a great culture of learning and not scaremongering. Anyway, I hope that lesson serves you well. I have literally met entrepreneurs that with ego have never been able to step out of the way. They've actually hired people, they've micromanaged them, they've tried to control them in every which way, and they haven't been able to let go of that relationship, especially with the client and them, and it's kept them really small. Like over 10 years, I've seen those businesses not even grow by 5% annually because the entrepreneur is the roadblock. Conversely, I've seen some companies like ourselves 10x their growth by hiring the right people, empowering their people, and getting out of the way so they can be successful. When you initially hire people, they may not be as good as you at doing what you do. But over time, if they're just doing one function in the business, they'll get better and better and better at what they do to a point where they'll be better than you at what you do in your business. And that has been true for me. Like when I first started the business, I was doing everything, but now I've hired people in the business to do one function in the business. They are far better than me at what I could possibly doing when I was doing all of it. Empower your people to do a good job and you'll start scaling your business. Revenue is vanity. Profit is for your sanity and cash is king. So when I first started out in business, I was enamored about the revenue. Look at me, we hit $1 million. Look at me, we've hit $2 million. But I was failing to look at the profitability in the business. The reality was we were working really hard to grow revenue, and growth sucks up cash. But the more people we would tip into the business, and this was a bit of a trade-off, we were growing the revenue, but we weren't growing the profitability. Now, the downside to having no profit is that profit is your insurance policy. You need to be profitable to be able to sustain the business. You need that insurance policy just in case you get hit with a curveball, which has been many cases through the business. We've had instances where the global financial crisis came, or we've lost a major client, the pandemic. And the good thing about the pandemic is that we had a war chest. You can improve your cash conversion cycle by a number of elements. That is debt collected on a regular basis. Don't let your debtors blow out. Like you should be keeping them into at minimum 30 days. Preferably getting paid in advance of delivering services. That is a great model. The other thing that can improve cash conversion cycles is your sales cycles. It's how well can you take a lead into a sale and the money in the bank. So improving your sales cycles will improve your cash conversion cycle. Make sure your cash conversion cycle is optimized. Cash in the bank will enable you to sleep easy at night, but it also gives you the ability to scale your business. War chest. You should be thinking about what is the war chest you need in your business. Now, it really depends on the type of business that you're in. 6 months, minimum of 3 months of working capital is really good. So when the pandemic came, our business, 80% recurring revenue with 6 months working capital. So we were in a really good place financially. That enabled us to have some certainty in uncertain times. Because let's face it, no one knew what was coming through the pandemic. We didn't know if we were even going to have a business. But the thing about dealing with the crisis is having a really good leadership team that can weather that storm and have a good strategy. Now, we did have a really well laid out strategy. We had plan A, we had plan B, we had plan C, but we only ever needed to use plan A. We were able to execute on it because we had good cash in the bank. And that good cash came from looking at not our revenue, but looking at our net profit and managing our cash flows. So make sure you're not chasing vanity on revenue. You absolutely want to have sanity so you can sleep easy at night with profit, but you also need that cash to grow your business, because at the end of the day, cash is king. Over the last 20 years in business, there have been times where our business got too complicated. It wasn't a simple business anymore. And every time it got complicated, we stopped scaling. And here's the insight that I got from it. You can't scale complexity. You have to make the complex simple, and then you have to make the simple compelling. Case in point, 95% of companies that we work with don't have a strategic sales system. They don't have a sales plan, first and foremost, or a sales process. Why? Because they don't know where to start. The plans that they tend to look at and lean on are complex. We've literally gone into companies and the sales plan's 48 pages long. It's too complex. Guess what happens to that sales plan? Gets stuck in the drawer. No one ever looks at it. The first thing we looked at when we were building our strategic sales system is we looked at the sales plan itself. It shouldn't be 48 pages. It shouldn't be complex. It should be simple and it should be compelling. Simplicity is genius. It's taken a lot of genius to distill down what should be in a strategic sales plan into one page. But it works, and it works because the sales team can all get on the same page. It's clear, it's concise, and it gives everyone the confidence they need to know exactly how the organization is going to market and scaling. The other complexity in the business is a sales process. Again, we've worked with companies that have very complex sales process, and we have taken the complexity and simplified it into a one-pager. It is the one-page sales process, and it is a wireframe of the sales process and key milestones. And it makes it simple for salespeople to follow, but it also makes it simple for sales managers to manage it, right? Because half the challenge of why companies don't scale is salespeople don't know what the sales process should look like, and sales managers who are leading the sales, who are holding salespeople accountable to sales, who are coaching the salespeople on sales, also find it complex. So having simplified the sales process is a great way to scale. So if you've got a complex business, if you can take the complex and make it simple, and if you can make the simple compelling, you've got more of a chance to start growing your business, because you can't scale complexity. Data doesn't lie, only people do. Now, people don't generally mean to lie, but they generally make assumptions or have opinions around gut feel. I don't know if that's ever happened to you in your leadership role, but we've got to remove anything that is a gut feel. Guessing is not a strategy. Strategy should be data driven. So across the business, we should be getting data in every aspect of the business to make data driven decisions. Now that is the way you can scale, because you're always looking at data on how to iterate parts of the business to be better and better at what you do. So I love digital marketing because it gives you data to drive decisions. You can split test marketing campaigns, split test the top of the funnel and lead flow to see which assets are performing better than the others. And so then you're in the business of iterating as you go, using informed marketing data to drive your decisions. And it's not too dissimilar to sales. Sales and driving growth in a business should be based on data. So you need to have really, really good, timely and accurate data in your strategic sales systems. So the data that you need to be looking at is pipeline. Pipeline is the health of any company. So we've got to be sure that our pipeline is accurate. We've got to be sure that our pipeline is well balanced. We've got to be sure that our pipeline is healthy. And if we can do that, if we can put the data around our pipeline, it also helps us to predict and forecast future sales. Because we don't have the right data, we end up in a stress situation where we don't have any visibility of what's closing. And at the end of the day, as a business owner, I can speak from truth here. You lie in bed restless, right, without this data, without these insights, and you're thinking about cash, you're thinking about how you're going to meet payroll, you're thinking about why aren't we winning business. So the data will give you the insights, and the insights will set you free from that stress and that worry. So some of the other data-driven decisions in sales, leading KPIs. You need to know what's going on with the activity that drives the sale. So you need to know like your conversion ratios through the process. You need to know how many phone calls you're making, how many calls get converted into discoveries, how many discoveries get converted into presentations, how many presentations get converted into sales. Now, when you've got data, you've got the ability to take that data and mathematically apply it so it gives you a formula so you can have accurate forecasting. Without the data, you're flying blind in the business, and that is no way to run an effective business. One of the other aspects that I'm always dealing with CEOs is that they go through a process of elimination. They go through this whack-a-mole process, which is a process of elimination, which is a very expensive way to go to ratify sales. And a lot of our CEOs don't know there's a better way. There's a way you can wrap science into selling. So, 20 years ago, one of the things I recognized is that CEOs didn't have the right data to really drive sales effectiveness. And that's why we partnered with a company called Objective Management Group, because they pioneered sales effectiveness tools. Did you know that there are tools out there that you can literally go to your sales organization and evaluate your strategy, your systems, your process, and people, and it gives you the data set in a very timely way, so it stops you having to go through the anguish of this process of elimination, because it gives you data within a week. With that data, you can make the right and smart decisions on how you're going to scale your business. So that data set tells you things like, do we have the right strategy? What do we need to do to close more deals? How effective is our strategic messaging? How effective are our sales leaders? Are our sales managers doing what they should be doing to drive sales in a consistent way? So a lot of our clients have gone through this process to help them expedite their sales success by having the right data and removing the guesswork. Guessing isn't a strategy. Make data-driven decisions on how to scale your business. You'll do that more succinctly, you'll do that more successfully, and you'll do it at a lower cost because you'll be making intelligent decisions on how to grow your business. So whether you're a mature business that are looking for growth ideas, maybe you've stagnated somewhat and you've got some gold nuggets from this series of videos, or whether you're starting out looking for some inspiration and you've got some insights from one of my 20 lessons in 20 years, what I'd love for you to do is action this in your business. Take one thing and action it, because without action, nothing ever happens. Now, if you've also got a slither of value from the video, please hit the like button. Just smash that like button. And better still, if you've got someone that's in a similar position than you that needs some encouragement, that maybe needs some inspiration or needs a little bit of a push, share the video with them. I'll wrap it up with this. A good plan that's action now is better than a well laid out plan that's action in the future. Don't let perfection get in the way of execution. Let's take your business by the reins, go and execute, be unstoppable, and I'll see you in the next video.